I grew up worshipping the Rugrats. It's as basic as that. I was obsessed with this show and I watched it really until I was beyond the target audience age. And as an adult, I like to dip into it for nostalgia now and then, but having just subscribed to Paramount on Amazon, I realised that they remade or relaunched the show in 2021. And I decided to check it out. And I guess I have to approach this in two ways. I'm only discussing the first episode. The first episode is called Second Time Around, which I actually feel is kind of a cute name to relaunch the show. And I have to guess, I guess I have to look at it in two ways. First of all, what's it like watching it as somebody who worshipped the original Rugrats, but also what is it like as a show in its own right? Because there will be young children watching this, presumably, who have never seen the original Rugrats or who have yet to see it. And, does it stand up in its own right? And I have to say, it actually does. Now, it's in a way, I don't like the animation design. The CGI is just really weird and jarring compared to the classic animation. But that won't be the case if you've never seen the classic animation. But there were certain times when I thought it was pretty good. For example, Chuckie is holding onto a Reptar doll, or soft toy, and it actually looks kind of fuzzy and fluffy, and it looks like a soft toy. So little things like that. Their clothing look like it's made of fabric. So little things here and there. I actually thought this change in animation style actually does have its benefits. So that bit was the bit that I was kind of not sure about how it would go down. And it is quite jarring sometimes, but as I said, there are things about it that actually kind of worked quite well. With regards to the narrative, it starts off in a way that I didn't like, or at least I didn't think I'd like it. For the first 10 minutes or so of this two-parter, it starts off with the babies in a jungle or a forest or something, being chased by a dinosaur. And I thought, is this the whole thing? Is every episode going to be like this, where they're in a unrealistic environment, basically their imaginative play? But actually, after 10 minutes, it cuts to the babies in a park, their parents are there, everything makes a lot of sense. And the main narrative kind of comes back to that park at some point, or something they witness there, which I won't explain just now, or at all, actually, I don't want to spoil it. But it's all about bravery. And of course, Chuckie was very scared being chased by a dinosaur, as they all were. And when they're back at home, he eats a worm, which is something he apparently does when he is scared, and he's worried that he's got wormioleosis, I think they called it. And he's worried that he's going to turn into a worm boy. And they have to try and find a way to stop him. First of all, stop him worrying about it, but also to stop him becoming a worm boy. And it's a story of Chuckie finding his bravery. And it's a nice narrative. It's very similar to a lot of the classic stories, often revolving around Chuckie and bravery and, how to team together to help your friend, which I think is absolutely adorable, and it's very sweet. There are a few specific things I'll mention in a moment, but they have the usual cast of characters, Tommy, Chuckie, Phil, Lil, Angelica, Susie. I don't think Dill was in it, and Kimmy's not. Dill wasn't in it, was he? I didn't just misplace Dill completely. The adults are all the same, apart from Grandpa Lou. Grandpa Lou, first of all, looks slightly different. He's got a plait going down his back. He's got this kind of hippie vibes, which in itself is fine. It didn't bother me too much. But he sounds too young. And it's mentioned in the episode that he's 70 years old. And he just sounds a lot younger than the classic Grandpa Lou. So that's the only thing that didn't sit right with me. And if that's the only thing, then that was pretty good going. There were a few other kind of slightly modern additions or changes. For example, in the intro, we have the same theme song, but in the intro, Chuckie is on a Roomba, giving it a bit more of a modern angle. And there are smartphones in it at one point. It also utilises a much larger environment. They go to a coffee house, there's a music concert. That's not to say every episode of the classic series were only ever set at home or in the backyard, but I definitely feel like they're utilising a much wider space. Tommy still has his stew driver, although this one's battery operated. Phil farted at one point, which just stood out to me as being slightly more modern, because I don't remember them ever being so forward with bodily functions in the classic one. I can't say for certain that it never happened, but it definitely stood out to me as being unexpected. And there's a beautiful speech in this from Tommy about how even if Chuckie does turn into a worm boy, they'll still love him because deep down he's still Chuckie. And a lot of the classic episodes had that kind of sentiment as well. So actually, for new audiences who have never seen Rugrats, I think it's capturing the essence very well and is a nice enough introduction, and obviously deals with important messages about bravery and sticking together and friendship. And if you're a fan of the Rugrats, I actually think it's good fun. I don't know if I'll stick to watching the full series. I was just curious to see what it was like. But there were things in it that I actually thought worked quite well. Not many things stood out to me as being bad decisions. Everything seemed to make a lot of sense. I have to say, I'm definitely a lot more impressed with it than I thought I was. A lot of the original voice cast is there as well, which is, worth mentioning because it means the characters also sound the same. And that's something that definitely was really important to me, because if the characters sounded different, straight away I would be viewing them as different characters, which is what I did with Grandpa Lou. He did sound very different, but the rest of them, everybody kind of sounded the way I remembered, made a lot of sense. Honestly, a lot more than I expected. I really enjoyed it.